Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to this series where we're taking a Quantum 4front 1 and turning it into a usable chair. Last time we replaced the motors on this thing. Well, we replaced them on one side, and today what we're going to do is start the process of RNet swapping this thing. These chairs come with QLogic 3, and it is the most locked down control system I have ever encountered. I don't know how exactly they've done it, but the programmers and any sort of software or adapters or tools to connect us to a computer basically don't exist out in the wild. And apparently, from what I'm hearing now, Quantum and Pride or whatever might be trying to get rid of handheld programmers completely. So anyways, I've had this thing sitting around. I've wanted to screw around with it for a while. And last time we learned that permobil motors actually basically just bolt right onto this thing. But since the last video, I went ahead and come here, you. I went ahead and swapped the motor over on the other side as well. So now we have two motors. I think these are actually off of an M300, but they're mounted up nice and solid. We've got the short pigtails of wire coming off of those. Permobil used to have wiring harnesses on the motors that you could disconnect. If you notice down here, there's an Anderson mini power pole and then sort of another Molexy type connector. And those are what connect the motors to the controller that we're going to put in the back there. What I have selected for this is an RNet 120 amp module. This is off of a 2024 Permobil, so it has all of their latest secret sauce built into it. However, we are going to use a stock RNet seating controller with this thing. And the reason we're going with a stock RNet seating controller is the Permobil ICS. Well, it basically spoofs one of those anyways, so this thing should be able to recognize it and work just fine. But I don't want to swap out the actuators on this chair. And I don't know, I can't remember right off. Some of the actuators might have micro switches for in-stop detection, and other ones might not. So we're going to have to rely on the feature that the stock RNet seating controllers have for in-stop detection, which is basically just running the actuators until they crash into their in-stops, which results in a rising current, and the seating controller detects that and turns off the actuator. We're going to try and get it mounted, get the motors wired up, plug in a joystick, maybe try and get the seating module wired. I don't know how much work this is going to be, but we're basically just going to dive into this, and hopefully by the end of this video, I want to at least get it powered up with an RNet joystick and be able to move it around. I don't think I have a long enough RNet cable to actually connect the joystick where it belongs, but anyways, I'm going to get set up here and let's get to work on this thing. Welcome to the power base on this chair. We pulled the back cover off. I actually haven't looked at these 4fronts. I'm not sure how everything mounts down in here. Well, I do know we can go ahead and unhook anything that's QLogic 3 because we shan't be using that. This is our main controller right here. Appears to be behind some sort of bracketry. Looks like we've got some Phillips screws and that'll come right off. Get our main battery connector out of here. Oh, I suppose we're gonna have to swap over this battery connector as well. This is the RNet one we're gonna be using here. And yeah, the connectors there are completely different. Now, I'm gonna have to pull the front cover and unhook the batteries, but there may be a chance, a very slim chance, that we can depin this thing, keep the same connectors and put them into this hard shell connector, but that's a problem for future us. So let's just unplug the rest of this. This right here is an accessory power plug that goes up to the lighting control module. And this is what soiled itself on the 4front and kept the chair from working. Man, that was a weird one. If you don't recall that one, basically the chair would think it was charging when it wasn't. And it turned out that the fender lighting control module, let's turn our brakes on. It turned out that our fender lighting control module somehow shorted itself out in a way that made the chair think it was charging when it wasn't. That took a lot of work to find. Oh, all right. Speak of the devil, here's this thing. As I recall, I did pull this off of my old 4front, but I remember when I did it that these cable connections break ridiculously easy. there's some heat shrink over these, and it's too thick to be able to compress the clip properly, and it ends up breaking the connector if you try to take it off. So let's see if we can do this with a pair of pliers here, maybe. There we go. Oh, there we go. That works. So on these Quantums, they have the little fender lights, and it is completely independent from the control system. It has its own little module here, and I've opened this up in the past, and it just has, actually, maybe this will just come open. It just has some little switching transistors and some other basic parts in it. Well, anyways, I think the lid's actually screwed on, but yeah, it is completely isolated, and it uses this monoport cable here with sort of an egg switch that you mount somewhere on the chair. You press it, and it turns those little LEDs on. Looks like our main control module is held in with Phillips screws. I wonder what the chances are that this thing is the same width as the RNet module. I don't know if we'll get that lucky, but we'll see here. How long are these screws? Ugh. Okay, yeah, that's a lot of screw. Oh, and the other nice thing about ditching the QLogic 3 control system is these stupid caster angle sensors. We will be able to just completely ignore these, and we won't have to use them. Nice thing about using a 2024 permobil RNet module is this should be compatible with that newer style gyroscope that we explored a couple months ago. All right, let's see what our sizing is like here. We're gonna put one screw through just to see if we're gonna line up. Nope, it is just barely off. You can see there's one hole, there's the other one. Let's see. We've got one of their, what is it, like a network cable splitter box. Again, I always forget what those are called. Pull that off here since we won't be needing it. Wow, they didn't want that going anywhere. Yeah, this is one bus cable in and 3 bus cables out. Or maybe it's going the other direction. Looks like we've got 1 male and 3 females on this thing. And, all right, look at that. Factory cable management there. It's no wonder that these things start having problems not too long after they're built in some cases. I believe, though, we should be able to stick this in the same spot. Yep, we can certainly mount it in the same area. The screws that held in the original one just go through this piece of plate metal back here, and then the batteries are right there. So what we can probably do is drill another hole right next to this one. I don't feel like tapping it, so probably just drill a hole and then put a nut behind it so we can actually mount this thing on here. However, these screws, oh, that's interesting. I was just looking at the distances here. So we've got the distance from the screw surface on this and the new one. This is a little bit thinner, but even looking at this thing, with how far these screws go in, I'm pretty sure those are going to be poking the batteries. Let me look in here. Oh yeah, sure enough. Right there and right. Oh. Yeah, on that side it's almost worn through the battery. So, what? I'm just always amazed by, again, if you like Quantum, this is not the video for you because I'm going to use a lot of words like, I can't believe the incompetence of how they do things. So we've got 2 screws going through this plate that are literally poking holes in this rear battery. Nice work. If you notice, these screws are the same, and we could have just used those to put it on, but anyways. I think at this point, it may behoove us to unhook these batteries. I think we've also gotten far enough along now that we can't run the seating, and that means our leg rests are going to be in the way to get to the battery box, but let's see if we can spin this around and at least unplug the batteries. We might be able to do that without opening the battery box. Well, without opening it all the way, that is. Need to get right down into here. Thread our eyeballs right down in here. You can see there's two giant Anderson connectors. Now, and apparently this chair has group 34 batteries in it. Yeah, 60 amp hours are not as tall. A lot of times these things will break off of the lid, so we'll just try and do it here and see what happens. Get my hand in here. Right, there's one. And there's two. All right, our batteries are now disconnected. The way Quantum wires these is each battery goes to its own Anderson connector and then plugs into sort of a Y harness. And that harness handles the circuit protection and also the series wiring for these things. Here's our little fender lights, if you didn't see those in the last episode. Now let's spin this heifer back around. Well, we're here and we know the batteries are disconnected. Let's see if we can do anything with this cable here as far as depinning it goes. Usually you can kind of slide this rubber sheath down a ways on these. There we go. And some pretty beefy cables. Don't know if I can depin this, but let's try. Alright, give me a couple minutes. I'm going to see if I can get these apart easily. After a bit of screwing around, I determined that these do in fact seem to have the same pins inside of them. And seeing as how we don't need this one anymore, I filleted the side of it off to see how it's locked in. And it's actually a little different than I thought it was. There's little tabs, so it looks like you need to come in from the front and press down this little tab right here. I don't know if it's on both sides. Feels like it might be. Alright, let's see what secrets lay on the bottom half of this. Oh yeah, sure enough, we do have, I don't know if you can see this, but yeah, there's little tabs on each side. Holy crap, I got it to work with a zip tie. Sweet! What I did was push the connector all the way forward, make sure the ribbed side of the zip tie is facing down. And we crammed that in, put this one in over here, then make sure it's pushed all the way forward, use some pliers to push it all the way in. And ta-da! There we go. Alright, so zip ties do save the day. Sweet. Let's verify on this module. Oh yeah, we have right there, plus and minus. Alright, cool. So we should be able to just kinda make sure our tabs are still good. It looks like our tabs are still in good shape. And positive is on this side. I think now we can just kinda push these up in here. Hey, look at that. It worked. Getting battery cables in and out of this chassis usually involves removing the seating and the top cover and a bunch of stuff, so I'd rather just spend some time and figure out a shortcut. Even if the shortcut does physically take longer, it's still less work. And there we go. One, well, slightly undamaged. We bent our tab out a little bit, but that's fine. That'll just make it stay in there a little bit better, but I'll just tweak that back down just because we can. One on the other side looks good. And now, sure, sort of lined up. I should be able to click this in place. Look at that. And looks fine on the front. Boom. There we go. Successfully got power to our new module. Now we can worry about mounting this thing. Alright, continuing on, I went to the hardware store and got some much shorter screws. And oddly enough, these are apparently called pan cheese screws. Yes, cheese, like you'd have on your nachos. But as you can see here, these are significantly shorter, and I got some even shorter ones as well. But I decided what we're going to do is use a riv nut on this other side. So we can attach this side of the module with the existing screw, which actually, I'm going to put that in right now because we need to mark this. Let's get this in here. See if we can tighten it down enough to kind of hold it. That looks about right. You can see the hole on this one here, and there's the other hole down below. So it looks like we can actually drill this and not have them interfere. I thought maybe the holes might be overlapping when I drilled it, and that would become an issue, but that's fine because we're just going to drill it and put a riv nut in there. That way we don't have to worry about tapping threads and all that fun stuff. I'm just going to use the drill bit to mark the spot that we're going to be drilling here. This just fits that hole, so we're just going to kind of do one of these. There we are. Now we can pull this back off and we should have a mark right where we need this to go. There we are. You can see that. Looks like we were a tiny bit elevated, but that's not too bad. Now the trick is, we need to drill a hole in this without going through the battery, so we'll have to be very carefuling with this, but I think it should be doable. Well, without drilling the rest of the way through the battery. You can't see it from this angle, but these screws have put significant damage and denting into those batteries. This is a thick piece of metal. This is going to take me a few minutes. I'm going to drill the hole and then come back. Now, this should go in here. There we go, beautiful. And now, assuming that this thing will even fit down in here. Yes, it does. All right, now we do the thing until it goes spring. Oh wait, these don't go spring, they're not rivets. I think you just kind of do this. I think. Unscrew. There we go. Now we have our nutsert installed. Can test this out with a screw. And surely enough, there it is. I did just realize though that the drill bit walked around a little bit, so there is a chance that this won't line up. Yeah. And how close are we here? Uh-oh. Yeah, that's... Dang it, that's in the wrong spot. I kind of forgot about that concept when I was drilling that and the drill bit was walking around. Oh, there we go, yeah. Like they say, a cross thread's a strong thread. Well, I'm not exactly sure if something's spinning or stripping, but in this case, we're gonna call that good because all we really need to do is keep this thing from rotating. I definitely screwed up. Well, actually, it feels like it's flat on there. All right, never mind. This all worked properly. We did it exactly as it's supposed to, and this is now installed. Okay. Oh, man. Moving on, let's see. Oh, these two wires go to our caster angle sensors, but I really don't care about those. I'm just gonna leave them in here. I really don't feel like taking those out, and we're not gonna be using them again, so we're just gonna cut these cables. We'll just cut these right down here. Actually, I'm gonna cut a little longer, and I can stuff the wires back up inside here. Let me turn the chair so you can actually see what I'm talking about here. These cables that come out right here are what go up to those caster angle sensors, so I'm just gonna cut them a little bit long. You can pull this out and just kind of stuff this up inside the plastic. Yeah, that's beautiful. But while we're over here, we need to get these motor cables threaded back into an area that's usable. Let me grab some zip ties. We're going to kind of clean this up a little bit. I just like that the motor and the brake cables on these permobil motors are separate. Makes it handy for stuff. These are very old motors that may need to be replaced at some point. We're a little beyond the proof of concept stage here, but I just want to get everything together and working. Then we may come back around and see if we can replace these. Oh, I wonder if we could put F5 motors on this. That would be sweet. And we can use the same existing annoying hole that the previous motor cables routed through. There's actually room now because there's no connector on there. These are going to go up and down a little bit. I need to probably find a spot to zip tie those off somewhere, but yeah, I think that should be good for now. Same deal on this side. Now we have motor cables sticking out here on each side, which is great. These ones that we're going to be using are pretty long, but oh, these are, oh wow, this is the high amperage kit. These must have come off of an old C500. So permobil had high amperage motor cable kits back in the day. I don't know if it's going to come through on camera, but look at the size of those cables compared to this screwdriver. Like, yeah, that's nice. I'm so happy we were able to reuse this existing cabling. I've got a video from a long time ago where I rebuilt a Quantum 6000Z from a bunch of parts. And in that video you can see this is not a trivial cable to remove. You have to take the seating off, pull the top cover off. It's zip tied all the way along this one cable channel track thing, and yeah, it's just a whole thing. So I'm so happy we were able to depin this and get it swapped over. Oh, I guess the other thing we could do also, we got to pull this off and see about mounting our this thing, seating controller module. Anyways, I'll be back in a few minutes. All right, there's been a fair amount of up and off the floor and back and forth today, but I think what I want to do right now is a quick sanity check. I want to plug in all the modules I have and see if they're compatible with each other right out the box. Like, I know I can program, I know I can program them all to work together, but I'm just curious to see. I haven't actually tried this yet. Let's get our power plug back in. I went ahead and reconnected our cables up front on the battery tray. So let's plug in a little RNet cable to the controller and see if we can at least get it to power on. There's that. Plug this in here. And here goes nothing. Hopefully don't let the magic smoke out of anything. All right. It's probably going to do an auto detect. Okay, motor brake air. That is not unexpected because we do not have the motors connected. Let's do that real quick. I also haven't yet programmed any of my custom mods into this joystick or into this module. Oh wait, I just remembered. This thing was connected with an Omni 2. So we might not actually get anything without programming, but let's see here. We'll get these all connected up. So right motor, right brake, left motor, left brake. Now let's see what we get. Probably an auto detect. Yep, doing the auto detection. Ice maker. Now we don't have a seating module or an ICS module plugged in, so regardless, it's probably not going to let us drive. But we're just going one step at a time here to see what happens. Alright, then we should get a red turtle. There it is. What modes do we have? Yeah, there's no modes and no profiles. Although this joystick may not be working properly. Regardless, let's grab our seating module here and we'll get this plugged in also. Then into the joystick. Okay, heard a little noise out of this. Turn it back on. Probably another auto detect. Sure enough. Heard the seating module click. Okay, so it's trying to move. Oh yeah. Alright, so it's backwards right now. We do have the seating module connected, so that's good. Let's see if we have any modes. We don't have any modes, and we don't have any profiles. And actually, let me grab a different joystick. I don't know if you can see this one. It looks like there was a bunch of tape or something on it. Let me grab a different one real quick, and just for no reason, we'll try this again. Alright, this one I know works. It's a PJSM, slightly more modern. We used it on the live stream the other day, so let's get this thing connected up. Only issue is there's no screws holding this bottom part on, so I have to be careful here. Another auto detect, no doubt. Ah, okay, so yeah, it looks like I can hear the seating module clicking. But yeah, seeing as how this is not an ICS module, I think we're gonna have to change the programming just a little bit. But I think it should move. Backwards should be forwards. Yep, sure enough. How about left and right? Okay, left and right is correct. So yeah, we're gonna have to do some programming on this, but this thing at least seems to work for now. And we can actually configure this using the RNet software. I always say on permobiles to never mess with the seating settings with the RNet software because it's different, but this is the actual module that's supposed to work with it. So anyways, looks like everything here is good. I think right now we're gonna unhook most of this. And let's pop off this back cover here and see about mounting the seating control module in here. Yeah, this isn't the best camera angle. I'll have to drag a bin or something over here to put the camera on, but let's at least get the cover off of here and see what's going on. Just has the super basic, is that 2-channel? Yeah, 2-channel seating controller on here. Got 2 screws mounting it. And this thing just uses 4 screws on the back. I swear I have a mounting plate for this somewhere. Well, regardless, let's get this thing pulled off of here and get rid of our wiring. All remnants of QLogic 3 are going away. I suppose we're going to have to add recline to this thing also. Oh, and power legs. Wait, does this have recline? No, it doesn't have recline. All it has is this bar here that... Whoop. Okay, that's a gas strut apparently. All it has is that bar. And I think all this thing has is tilt actually, come to think of it. Whatever. Joystick cable. How does this come out of here? Oh, it's actually screwed on. How fancy of them. There's a cable management metal bracket. There's a closer look at it. It actually screws on there and these cables sort of clip into it. We might be able to reuse that for RNet. We'll see. We'll definitely be reusing this little wiring loom though here. This is pretty nice to get our cables up from down below. Can we somehow use any of this to our advantage? Screw holes don't line up there. Yeah, not really. Oh man, all these plastics are broken here too. Oh, those are of course hex cap. Everything else has been Phillips so far. Yeah, I think this chair's run into a few things. Should be able to glue that back together though, probably. And there's our tilt actuator cable right there. We can just kind of unfurl this. Yeah. Alright, actuator cable for tilt. Just the standard sort of 2-pin Molex looking thing. What do these use? Oh, okay, cool. So this module just uses the standard spade connectors for almost everything. So that's going to be ridiculously easy to make our own harness for this. Alright, cool. Probably just wind up cutting these off and just crimp on some spade connectors and should be good. Alright, we're definitely making progress here. We got a whole whole pile of parts laying everywhere. But I think for now, this is actually coming along pretty nicely. I grabbed the laptop here. I got one of the connection blocks, and I believe we have all of the components hooked up here we need. There's the main control module, joystick, seating control module, and the gyroscope, then our dongle. Let's get this powered on, let it do its auto detect, and then I'm gonna drop the configuration onto this chair from the, I think it's a 2022 F3. Anyways, that newer one that's over there. That chair pretty much has all the same components, including the newer gyro, but it has an ICS instead of a seating module. I think we should be all right though without that. Okay, this should move. Yep, chair seems to move fine, but we don't have any seating modes. Once again, doesn't necessarily matter. I can't remember if I've saved the configuration from the module on this chair, or the chair that this one came off of or not. Let's do that first. I'll read from controller, and save as OEM. Actually, while we're in here, let's see if this thing even sees the gyro. Ah, sure enough, gyro 2.3. Excellent. And we'll take the configuration from that 2023 F3 and drop it onto here. Yes, program. In theory, if this works properly, our joystick should start working correctly for forward and reverse. Right now, that controller thinks it's from an M3, and the motors are mounted backwards from how they are on this chair. All right, will forward be forward? Hey, it is. Forward is forward. Sweet. It's extremely slow, but that's fine. There we go. Forward, reverse, as we run over a bunch of things. Do we have seating controls? Profile 2. Okay, we still don't have seating controls, but that's probably fine. The cool thing is the gyro's connected and the chair's moving. So we're making progress at least. Now there is a very high probability that I'm going to have to run a stock RNet configuration on this controller for the seating controller. Whoops, let's not set that on the ground while it's powered on. But I may have to run a stock RNet configuration for this thing to work properly. It's going to take a lot of screwing around off camera, I think. I know I can get this working one way or another. The only thing I don't know is if this gyro module here will work with a standard RNet configuration or not. Time for further testing. This is from the tilt actuator on that chair. I went ahead and chopped off the connector that was on it and just put on a couple of spade terminals. We're going to connect this up to the seating controller and see if it is actually doing anything or not. It's a little hard to tell right now because we're not getting feedback on the joystick, but I get the feeling it might actually be doing something, or at least we need to find out. All right, that's now connected. Let's plug in this joystick because it's the one we're eventually going to use. Of course, another auto detect. Seating mode. Oh! Oh! This thing can detect when an actuator is connected. Look, it works. Hear it? See, look, we're tilting. I don't know if you can see it, but yeah, there we go, we're tilting. Interesting. Did I just happen to accidentally plug it into the tilt port? Let's see, A1 is purple. And yeah, I accidentally wound up plugging it into the tilt port. That's kind of funny. See, this is why I screw around with stuff, is you just have to try a bunch of things and then you'll eventually figure something out. So it knows when an actuator is connected or not. Cool. Okay, shut this down. We're going to stick the permobil firmware back on there and see if that is still the case. Drop this back on. Software locked up. Oh, there we go. Now it's responding again. It says there's a communication error, but last time it did that, we were fine. All right, seating mode. All right, so our label's incorrect, but that's fine. It thinks that is recline instead of tilt. But, okay, so intelligent seating module, I guess, is correct. It knows if something is connected. Ha! Let's make sure it still sees our gyro. Sure enough, gyro 2.3. How about, does our chair still move? That it does. Oh man, this is great. All right, I'm actually pretty excited about this. Lots of testing and lots of screwing around. I thought for a minute there we were gonna have to run an ICS module on this thing. There is a way using these modules here connected to a permobil ICS, at least the older version of it. I call them a digital to analog converter. That's not what they are. But basically, the ICS bus plugs into the 3-pin cable, and then it's got an output, which is literally just 24 volts plus and minus, and it reverses the polarity to control just a regular dumb actuator. The only problem with using these is I believe you lose in-stop detection. These may have some sort of overcurrent protection built in, but the ICS system is not set up to operate that way. These actuators on this chair, I believe, can be crashed repeatedly without any sort of issue. But yeah, I'm happy we were able to use the actual RNet ISM, Intelligent Seating Control Module, actually control an actuator. The chair moves, we recognize the gyroscope. So yeah, all systems are go. Basically now all we need to do is install all this stuff on here. And well, there's a few other things I want to do as well. Among other things, I want to get all the power seating options installed on it. That's going to take a little while because I'm going to have to order stuff off of eBay and whatnot. But anyways, for today, I'm feeling good. We're going to pick this back up in the morning and try to at least get everything mounted to it so the chair can at least be self-contained and moved around. I think I'm going to have to buy a few longer RNet cables. I don't know where all my stuff is, but, well, I know where it is. It's buried in storage. But anyways, we're going to call that good for tonight, and I'll check in with you guys in the morning and see if we can't finish up this part of the series. All right, it's the next day now, and if I look tired, yes, I am. There's been a lot of work over the last few days, but a lot of progress has been made. I'm switching to a different camera, though, that can handle dynamic range a little bit better. So I got most of the stuff installed on here. Let me give you a tour of how that all went down. By the way, I probably should have mentioned earlier, these are the tires and wheels we're going to be putting onto this chair. These are significantly beefier. They are air-filled. We're probably gonna mess with that in the next video, but we're gonna pull these hubs off, put on some compatible, I believe these are 4-lug hubs onto the permobil motors, and then we're gonna get those tires on. So right now, these are just some crappy rollers, as it were, so the thing can move around. But taking a look at the back of the chair, you can see there's a lot of wiring going on here. What I wound up doing was, well, we left off with this module being mounted. We got the motor cables connected. What I wound up doing for the gyro, I put this bracket back on, and this thing, I was actually able to mount to this bracket. What I did was used a square nut that happened to be the same thread as the bolt that goes through it, and it just perfectly lined up on that bracket so that I could put it there in the corner and would have room for the cable to connect and everything. And you can see it just misses this motor connector. Our cable comes out here. Right now the rear cover goes on this thing with no problems whatsoever. You can see, yeah, there's that square nut right down there. The QLogic 3 connection block used this crazy metal bracket over here, and I was able to use that to get our battery cables through and our right motor connection. So it's kind of nice that that is able to hold those wires in place. These were all pretty long, but I was able to nicely tuck them all down here. Those are zip tied in place. Our left motor cable comes over here, kind of next to the controller. That's how it was with the original QLogic 3 one on there. But yeah, everything tidied up down here pretty nice. The way Quantums do this is the cables that go up top basically come out of the top of the rear cover and then float through space up to here. I need to do some glue repair work on this thing, but you can see right here on each side, there's a couple of notches. But if we put this thing on here, goes over the transport brackets on each side, and then kind of line up these wires here. There we go. That's sitting in place, and our two wires come out that hole. And I'm going to use some of that loom material to kind of conceal both of those. The reason there's two cables instead of one was that gyro module. I did not have room to put another RNet connection block down inside here anywhere, and it would have resulted in more wiring because the shortest RNet cables you can easily find are about that long. And trying to wrap that around and a second one that goes with the controller and everything just wound up being a mess. So I determined that just running two of these cables up to the top would be the easiest way to deal with that. Moving up here, this is still, it needs some cable management, but I was able to use one of the RNet connection blocks right here and the pre-existing QLogic 3 cable bracket that was right here. I was able to use some washers and actually spare screws out of a router that I took apart and threw away. There were some little holes on the bottom of this. So I was able to screw those in, get this thing mounted on here nice and solid. There's a screw right there and another one over here. We have our factory sort of cable tie thing right there. We got our seating control module. I was able to mount this, albeit it is a little crooked. If you notice here, there's a step down to the back where that screw mounts, and the edge of this is now pressed, well, it's a pretty heavy interference fit right there. So this thing's sitting in here a little bit crooked. What I wound up doing though, can't really see this, but you can see there's two screws there. I just mounted it with two screws. I drilled holes through it, pulled the seat back off to access that. So there's just screws on this side that are holding it on. This side just kind of like sitting there, but nice and solid, not going anywhere. We got our tilt actuator wire here running up, and that is plugged in with these two spade terminals. And the most amazing part was I got a joystick mounted on this thing. Okay, I'm here working away on this chair, and we've got the old QLogic 3 joystick removed. I swear in the past I've had to modify this bracket to get an RNet joystick on here, but apparently Pride or Quantum or whoever it is did something that made sense, because they do have chairs in the UK and other countries that run RNet, and somehow they went ahead and gave us two screw holes that line up with RNet joysticks. Look at that. Screws actually go in there, they thread in. These are actually a little bit of a slot instead of a hole. So I'm pleasantly shocked and surprised, and yeah, but anyways, we'll be able to use the existing swing away, so that's something. Again, I'm shocked and appalled that was even possible, but we got the cables running down here. I'm gonna add a zip tie. Comes through this little hole in the joystick. Then factory cable management right here. With these particular chairs, all the cables have to go in through the bottom of the rear cover. So when that's on, this is gonna kind of loop down here and then go in through the bottom. And again, I gotta fix some of the wiring and whatnot, but right now, actually that cable's not doing so hot, but anyways, right now the whole thing powers up and it works. Our gyro's good. I'm gonna have to do a pretty decent amount of programming. Right now it's a little bit unwieldy when I try and steer it. I haven't actually sat in this thing yet and tried to drive it, but I'm gonna put the rear cover back on just to make sure no wires hit anything, although this is all pretty solid. But anyways, I'm gonna put the rear cover back on, then let's power this up and put the seat back on and see it in operation. Oh, also the rear cover for the seat back does fit on here, kind of. This module's a little bit thicker and there's this weird cutout thing right there, but the top screw holes do in fact line up on each side, and it actually contacts up here. The bottom is sticking out a little bit. You can see that flexing there. Everything's in there. But I think we're gonna have to change this out anyways when we put recline on this, because the recline actuator takes up a little bit more space, and those chairs have a slightly different revision of this cover. But for now, we can just use some longer screws on the bottom here, and that will that'll make that all work fine. But yeah, check it out. We got the bottom cover on, we got the back cover on while I'm holding it, and yeah, this is working out better than I planned. Let's get this thing powered on here. There we go. We've got, come on, there we go. We've got 2 yellow bars. Right now, I'm gonna back up here a little bit. I'm not sure what's going on. I've been trying to figure out what the stock compensation setting should be on these motors. All of the old profiles that I have for M300s, they're either 40 milliohms or 80 milliohms. 80 milliohms seems extremely high, but I think what I'm going to do is just hop into this thing and do their usual testing. I'm not going to go into it in this video, but it involves going up some ramps and door thresholds and things like that, and kind of feeling how the chair responds and making some adjustments. But if we grab this joystick, the chair moves, and interesting. Yeah, I haven't messed with these new gyros very much. I feel like we might be having a configuration issue with how that thing's working. Whoop. Yeah, see how it just turned kind of there for no reason? And sometimes it gets all weird. Woo! Like that. That was unexpected. Okay, that feels like the compensation's wrong. I'm gonna connect the laptop and turn that down a bit. I think I have it set to 40 milliohms right now. Like I said, as old as these are, all the configuration files I have said 80, but that seems weird. Anyways, I'm gonna play around with that just a little bit, then I'm gonna throw a cushion on it, and I'm gonna try and drive it. And I think that should be a nice way to sum up this segment of the video after Arnett swapping this. I found a setting for the gyro orientation, and it is mounted 180 degrees out of where it was originally with this chair. So I changed that setting in here and we're uploading it now. Curious to see if that's as simple as it's gonna be. It would be nice. Okay, I think it uploaded. Let's give it a try here. And does it go all crazy on us? Ooh. Now it's like it's on rails. All right, cool. I think. Oh, well. Yeah, I'm gonna try and turn a little bit. Yeah, there's something screwy with that. We'll have to figure it out, but at least the thing works. You know what? I'm just gonna unplug that module real quick and rule out any other issues, because again, I'm still not sure about the compensation setting on these motors. Gyro is now unplugged. Let's see what we get here now. Put it back to the same level. Gyro disconnected. Oh, that's right. If it doesn't see it, it goes into a crazy super slow mode. It does not appear to be misbehaving though, or is it? Yeah, it is. It's still acting strange. I'm gonna change the compensation real quick. Okay, we set this to a very conservative 30 milliohms. We'll reboot just in case. Gyro has now been reconnected. And let's see what this gets us. Oh yeah, that's nice. Nice and lazy to crank this up all the way in profile 1. Oh yeah, that is behaving like a normal chair. All right, cool. Well, it turns out 40 milliohms exceeded the threshold of what these motors wanted. I set it to 30. I think 35 is probably what we're gonna want. But yeah, this seems good. I don't think that really, well, it might have had something to do with the gyro when the compensation set too high. I'm getting into the weeds here, but the combination of those two things, I think, was making it crazy. I'm going to set it to 35. The next clip you see will be me sitting in this chair attempting to drive it around. Our batteries need to be charged, but spin the wheel, big money. Let's see what happens. Oh, it moves. It seems to turn. Yeah, okay, all right. Let's bump up into our faster profile. Oh yeah, we have a chair. Sweet. Okay, I think we're gonna wrap that up. I'm just doing some maneuvers here. Let's go into this room. One of our motors sounds a little unhappy. Not surprising though, as these motors were from the steampunk chair, but yeah, we have a chair. We swapped a 4front one that had QLogic 3 to RNet. It has a gyro. We have a manual seating controller. Actually, let's try and tilt here. Hey, it's tilting. Nice. And, oh, we even have, I don't know if you can see this, but we even have Bluetooth mouse mode. All right, well, at this point, we're gonna wrap up this episode. We got it to work. I'm super happy. Learned a lot of stuff along the way. I don't know if that gyro orientation setting was 100% required, but that thing combined with the runaway motor compensation setting definitely was not doing us any favors. And again, with a chair that's front wheel drive, nothing to do with skill. You have to have a gyro if you're going more than about 4.5 to 5 miles an hour, because physics. Nothing to do with skill. That's how these are. These newer gyro modules, as we explored in the previous video, work significantly better and they don't get in your way. So anyways, thanks for watching. Next video, I think we're gonna mess around with the tires and get those wheels and hub adapters and everything installed. Sometimes on these permobil motors, the hubs don't want to come off, so that might be its own thing. But anyways, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed.